Welcome to Surrender School.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, everybody. So great to be here. I'm going to start off with the mission statement for Surrender School. At Surrender School, we recover. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions with those who want a healthy relationship with food. We are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do try to adhere to the spirit of the traditions. And just a few things that's going on in Surrender School. Your best source of info is surrenderschool.org. But tomorrow we are starting a new book study called Build Yourself Up Without Limits. It's tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific. Amber's going to be leading that, and it's a really good book about really looking at your beliefs and your thoughts and the words you tell yourself. So it relates to, eating as well as any other, kind of thing you might be managing in your head. So I'm excited for that to start tomorrow. And then we have ongoing a couple of events. The Emotional Sobriety Reading Room is on Fridays from 8 to 9, and then in the Abstinence and Recovery Monday nights at 5:30 Pacific. So again, check out the website. And then ongoing as well as the Supercharge Your Recovery, Working the Steps by Enneagram Type. That's on Sundays at 10:30 Pacific. And they have a page, and if you don't know your Enneagram type, you can take the test. We also have a WhatsApp group for this particular meeting as well. If you're interested in joining, that'll get put into the chat shortly. And then everything at Surrender School is free. So we want to have it accessible to anybody who would like it. But if you do feel like you are able to donate and you've gotten something out of your recovery from Surrender School, we will gladly take donations, and we are a 501(c)(3) corporation. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and say the set aside prayer. Let's take a moment to feel your breath going in and out, to feel your feet on the floor. All right, God, help me to set aside everything I think I know, to leave space for what I have yet to learn. So today we are getting into it. We're almost done. I can't believe it. I was looking at what we have left, and I know we did not go in order. So we are now on Principle 4. We have two more sessions after this. So today is talking about discovering the satisfaction factor. And we'll do a quick check-in, and then I'll talk a little bit about ways to figure out how to enjoy your food, which it sounds like a funny thing because I think sometimes we don't enjoy it, or if we enjoy it, we feel guilty for enjoying it, or if I enjoy it, it might mean it's something wrong. So we'll talk about all those things, and then we'll have some time for writing and sharing. So yeah, I just wanted to see, I know I wasn't here last week, and I heard there was lots of discussion about the log and letting go of the log and holding on to the log. And I would love to hear if anybody has anything to share, either if they did any tapping or used affirmations or just did any sort of new behavior around food that you haven't done before. I'd love to take a moment here and hear from people. So today, principle 4, discover the satisfaction factor. I gotta close this so I can see. When you eat what you really want in an environment that is inviting, the pleasure you derive will be a powerful force in helping you feel satisfied and content. And if you remember back to another principle where we talked about really setting up our environment so that it is pleasant, right? We're not eating on a pile of books, or we're not, eating in the car, which I'm guilty of at times. But, if we really sit and enjoy our food, our meal, it can give us satisfaction beyond just what's on the plate. And then, as if you ever like really wanted to eat something, like maybe you want a steak, or I don't know, that's just one example, and you have a salad instead, it's just not as satisfying. And then you may end up overeating or eating something, um, more of something that you didn't want because you're just not quite satisfied. Um, Food, and also the idea behind this principle is to honor your hunger and to eat when you're moderately hungry. So we're not at the primal, I'm starving, I haven't eaten in 6 hours, kind of a mode. We're in a, oh, I've had, I'm starting to get hungry. I'm pleasantly hungry or moderately hungry. What sounds good? Because when we're overly hungry, anything can sound good, or the things that maybe we don't really want, are appealing to us. Um, the other part of this is, let's say I'm gonna, eat what sounds good, and then I'm gonna feel guilty later, right? So it's really, again, I feel like this is a part of our foundation building. If we're letting go of that diet culture, if we're honoring our hunger and our fullness, then this is just a really nice principle to practice as well. And it's about trusting ourselves. It's trusting that I can enjoy my meal. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to end up eating the whole box. I'm going to enjoy whatever it is, and then it's over. And then we move on and do other things in our day. But I think it's that idea that, at least for me, if I'm enjoying my food, this must be like something I'm addicted to, or it's something that isn't good for me, or I don't know, like I can have all these um, different beliefs behind it when it could just be just enjoy the thing, right? And then move on. Okay. So, really, satisfaction is kind of in the middle of this whole idea of intuitive eating. So, we can think of it in terms of rejecting dieting, honoring our hunger, enjoying our exercise. Like, really, the point isn't to be suffering or not enjoying things, but it's also that idea of, knowing what's going on with ourselves emotionally. Like sometimes if I'm feeling off, like I was sharing before, we got started, I traveled and I am just not quite here yet. I'm like here in body, but my mind and spirit are just not quite aligned. And those are times when like, oh, just gonna have a quick something to eat that, may not be really what I want. So it's just really knowing how we're feeling, knowing what we need, and then enjoying what it is that we're doing. Um, One of the dietary guidelines for health promotion in Japan is make all activities pertaining to food and eating pleasurable ones. So, sometimes, like I was saying, when we enjoy, if we've been chronic dieters and we start to enjoy our food, we might think, oh no, I'm doing it wrong, or this isn't going to be good for me, or I'm going to go on a binge, or whatever it is. So it's really trying to um, detach the feelings of I enjoyed that meal to and now I'm going to be off and running with overeating or something like that. Um, and the French, who revere the pleasure of eating, have the third lowest rate of heart disease in the world. So if you've ever been to France or had, French food, it's very rich, but there's a satisfaction in it, and I imagine there's not as much overeating possibly because there is so much satisfaction in the food that they're eating. So deprivation is a key factor that leads to backlash eating. So not being afraid of enjoying your food, because that feeling can then lead to, well, what I really wanted was the steak, and I ate, 12 salads or whatever it is. I'm just kind of making that up. But if you remember back to the making peace with food, if we deprive ourselves, we will eventually overeat, or it will eventually come out kind of sideways, right? And eating things that we don't really want to eat, or more than we want to eat at the time. The key, and I'll be saying this kind of throughout today, is just really not trying these things when you're extremely hungry, right? Because you may not have the right frame of mind if you're overly hungry. Or I will also say if you're overly emotional, like these kind of practices where we're trying new foods or trying new behaviors, we should really be intentional with them, and also like set ourselves up for success. Not try them when we're like overly stressed, we haven't slept, whatever it is. If there's just too much going on, like today is not the day to start this, right? Today is the day to just continue with what you're doing, and then maybe find a time when you're feeling a little more grounded and balanced to try it. Um, the other idea in finding satisfaction in your food is to put whatever it is that you want on a plate. So say, um, Halloween's coming up. Maybe you're somebody who enjoys Halloween candy and you're like, oh no, I can't have it. Or if I eat it, I eat 12 of them or whatever it is. You know, maybe do it different by putting that piece of candy on a plate and sitting and enjoying the candy and then moving on with the rest of your day. And we'll talk about next week, we're going to be talking about gentle nutrition. And we'll talk about this idea of play food and how it has, it's usually like a very small portion of what we eat in a typical day or typical week. But yeah, the idea is to do it a little different, right? And then phantom food, this kind of goes back to making peace with food and what you really want to have. So again, trying to fill that void with something. And this is kind of like with a little Halloween theme here. I didn't realize that. Filling that void with something that isn't really what you want. So having a rice cake when you may really want, I don't know, chips, right? Like chips might be something you want, but instead you're like, I'm going to be good, have a rice cake, and then you eat 12 million rice cakes and you don't feel good for many reasons. But that idea of like trying to fill up on these things that will may feel less guilty with low fat, sugar free, all that kind of stuff. When if we really just had the thing, it would probably pass and we'd be like, yeah, I don't really need that for another year, whether it be Halloween candy or whatever it is. So, how can we regain pleasure in our eating? Um, Here are some ideas. Ask yourself what you really want to eat. And again, if we're overly hungry, that is not the time to start this because we're going to say, I want this, and I want this, and I want this. So it's not a good gauge. But if you're moderately hungry, this is where I would say practice this. Discover the pleasure of the palate. So I remember when I was first doing this, and the workbook has, if you're in, have the workbook, it has a lot of great questions and activities to do so that you can really get in touch with what am I really wanting to eat right now? Is it something, soft or cold or hot or smooth or crunchy, just really getting in touch with what it is you're wanting to have. Making the eating experience more enjoyable. So again, just sitting down, taking a beat, having your meal, not being distracted, not watching, not being on your phone, just really enjoying the moment. And sometimes even just giving yourself that time to sit and focus on one thing is going to be enjoyable as it is. Or not, because sometimes sitting and having nothing to do can bring up feelings too. So I understand why I don't sometimes want to sit and have nothing to do. Not settling. So, if you try something thinking, oh, I really feel like having a ice cream sundae, and you start eating it and you're like, this isn't really that good. You don't have to finish it. You don't, just take your bite and move on. Um, and then at the last number five is checking in, does this still taste good? There's a certain threshold when we kind of stop even tasting our food after a while because we're just, eating it kind of automatically, maybe not checking in. So again, checking in with the fullness factor, but also, does this still taste good? And sometimes the answer might be no, and you can be done eating for then. And then looking at the sensual qualities of food. So the taste of it, the aroma, the appearance, how much, is it hot, is it cold, and then any sort of textures. So I think sometimes I forget to like look at, what I'm eating. Is it pretty? Is it colorful? Does it have, variety and taste or whatever it is? I can get so on autopilot and just, oh, this is breakfast, and really forget to like enjoy what it is, not just in the taste and feeling full, but the whole experience. Okay, and then artificial sweeteners. So they've done studies. A lot of times it can lead to an increased appetite because you're really tricking the brain into thinking this is sugar, this is something sweet, and then the body is feeling less satisfied because it really isn't sugar. I'm not saying go out and eat sugar. I'm saying just if you're having a lot of artificial sweeteners, you may want to get curious about how it affects your appetite, how it affects, how much sweet things you want to have all the time, because having the artificial sweeteners can encourage more sugar cravings, um, and can lead to disconnected eating. So that's the whole point here. We're trying to get intuitive. We're trying to figure out what our bodies need and how much and how often. And if we're tricking it with artificial stuff, it's not really giving ourselves a fair shot. And so asking, what do you really want to eat? And again, this needs to be at a time when you're not extremely hungry. If you think about something like a birthday celebration, oh, I want to make sure I have this, that, the other, and not that every day we need to think of every day as our birthdays, but if you're going to try adding a new food, really getting intentional with it and ask, what do I really want to eat? I mentioned I was traveling and I was in Italy and it was like, everyone's like, how was the food? And it was funny because I had we had one meal out in the pasta and all the stuff. But basically, I went to a grocery store. I got food that I normally eat. I had apples and sandwich stuff and that was fine. I don't know. I mean, it was just interesting because a lot of people after I came back, "Well, how was the food?" And um it was great. It was good, but I wasn't like that wasn't my main thing in going. But again, when there was something I wanted to try, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this. And some of it was good, some of it was not what I was expecting or wanting. So again, I'm getting quiet and really asking ourselves these questions. Not what should I eat, but what do I want to eat? Eating slowly and mindfully. I love this little sloth guy, really enjoying the bites, checking in. Is this still enjoyable? Is this still what I want to be eating? Can I have half? Do I need the whole thing? Really being mindful. And then that last bite threshold of, okay, I think I'm about getting full. Like this is it. And having, we talked about having a ritual around that, whether it's, I will get up and like start doing dishes or something to just say the meal is over. But having that, I guess, intention and not shoving food in our mouths that we're like, okay, this is the last bite because it's the last bite, but really like having that awareness of what our bodies are needing. And then your eating environment, like I mentioned, making it something that is peaceful, enjoyable. We talked about this in a previous session about, is there chaos before a meal? Do you have enough food available? Are you feeling tense or having conflict, feeling criticized? All of those things can affect our eating environment in terms of our emotions. So, really having a sense of how to take care of yourself if you're having any of these emotional uh, situations, so that so it doesn't have to come out on your plate. Really getting in touch, and then finding ways to soothe without having to go, using your dinner or your meal to soothe. And we talked about that a little bit the last two times in terms of, is it tapping? Is it journaling? Is it calling a friend? Is it distracting yourself? And not again using the meal to soothe. I mean, sometimes we do. That's just our plight as humans. But if we can minimize that or at least have an awareness of what we're doing, that is always helpful. And then asking yourself, what are your favorites? I don't think that ever happens, at least for me in food recovery. Like, what are your favorite foods? And, those are on the bad list, those are on the do not eat list. And it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, that's been my experience. Everyone has to do what's right for their own bodies and minds and everything. But if you've ever asked yourself, what are your favorite things? And it doesn't have to be just, it's like who do you like to eat with? Where do you like to eat? And what do you like around you? Is it like a candle on the table or music or outdoors or whatever it is? But really, again, putting intention into it. I think that makes me feel empowered when I'm making choices instead of like, well, that meal just happened and I just happened to eat the whole thing instead of having, an intentional a meal that I really enjoy. And then I liked this, the Jennifer Hoover, she's a RD and a naturopath. For many, chasing the clean eating dream starts with the best of intentions, but before you know it, you're stuck feeling like you should always pick the salad, even when you really want the pizza, because clean eating is a diet and wellness culture trap in disguise. So, you want a certain thing, being intentional around it and picking the thing that will bring you satisfaction. So we're going to take a break now and do some reflection questions. And Joy, if you could pop those into the chat. What foods bring me the most sensory pleasure? Sensory. Do I notice a difference in how satisfied I feel when I eat those foods versus when I eat something I should? Um, I think my mouse just died. I don't know. How does where and how I eat affect my sense of satisfaction? So if I'm shoving a protein bar down my throat in the car, how satisfied am I versus just sitting and having a meal? What small shift in my eating environment could make meals more enjoyable? Can I recall a time when I felt truly content after a meal and what made that meal satisfying? And I like this one a lot. How do I know when I've had enough? Is it a physical sign, a mental cue, or a feeling of contentment? And really, that idea of trying to get off of autopilot and really tuning in, which can feel scary, especially if we're in, I eat this many times a day, nothing in between. We want to make sure we get enough at that meal because there's not going to be another meal till there's mealtime. So being able to say I'm full now and having the opportunity to have a snack, that takes the pressure off of that meal being like, so fully filling and fulfilling. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. Okay, so how to apply this principle, kind of like what I've already mentioned, eating when you are pleasantly hungry, asking yourself what sounds good to eat, making time to appreciate your food. Try sitting down at a table, paying attention to your senses before and during eating, provide variety, and then also just being patient with yourself as you're trying this new skill. And I think too, like if this feels too hard to start with food, I was thinking about like for those who have coffee, like in really enjoying your morning beverage or start with a drink, start with something that feels maybe a little less scary than like a meal or a food that feels, off limits. And uh, Yes. And then I'm going to send out a link. There's this exercise in the workbook about like kind of mindful eating where you put something in your mouth and you notice the flavors and the textures. And so I'll send a link out. Somebody did it and so I'll just share that with you. I didn't want to redo it since it's already out there. Um, I'll also be sending out the Discovering Satisfaction and Satiety worksheet. So really looking, are you meal hungry? Kind of different ways that you can get satisfaction, and then how long different foods may last. And so you can check that out for this week. And then perfectionism is self-abuse of the highest order. So let's keep that in mind as we're trying something new. We're not going to be perfect. I also read something this morning that was perfect for me to hear. Easy does it. There is no need to hurry or force things to happen. Everything is occurring in perfect timing. So, just showing up here. And I think we need to, next week, we'll talk about next steps on what's going to happen after this session ends in a couple of weeks. Here's some mantras to consider for this week. Satisfaction is nourishment too. I honor my body. I honor what my body truly wants. Pleasure in eating helps me feel content. When food delights my senses, less is enough. And I heard people sharing about that today. I choose foods that satisfy both body and soul. So I will send out this I eat script thing you can try, with whatever food you're interested in. And then next week, we're going to be talking about gentle nutrition. So I know everybody wanted to know about this one earlier, but I wanted to wait towards more the end so that we could really build some foundation of some of these other principles before we dive into what we should and shouldn't eat, which it's not like that at all. It's just having another level of awareness of foods that feel good in our bodies, how long foods last, and things like that. And I think that is all I've got for today.
Thanks for recovering with us.